Hi, this is Commander Congruent Crib on Maia XM, and I'm here with...
I'm Commander Stephanie Atronach.
And I'm Commander Felix Jefferson.
And it's been a while since we did a radio show, but we've decided to come back on air.
Yeah, you might have seen us recently. We all three of us, we just participated in Elite Aid a couple weeks ago. We hopped in some ship launch fighters, went into the arena, fought some battles, and we were on a quest to get Commander Congruent here, our newest member, to the team, I guess. A new team. We aren't with Radio Sidewinder anymore. I should probably make note of that. But we were trying to get him some kills, and we succeeded.
Yeah, I got like 2. I think.
Yeah, it only took an hour.
Yeah,
it only took an hour.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, one of them was on me, so I don't know if that's.
You mean?
I was gonna say a kill is a kill, right?
Yeah.
So
either way, it was a lot of fun and for a good cause. And I mean, the real charity was getting you a kill because that was the hardest part.
Yeah. So please, Commander, if you get a chance, check out Elite Aid. They're doing a lot of great work. And if you have anything to offer, I'm sure they would be more than willing to get you to either participate in a event or, help with promotion or something.
And now on to at least our programming for today. So obviously we haven't been doing the radio show for a few years now. Ever since we had a little bit of a scuffle over at Radio Sidewinder that kind of made us take a break. And we haven't been keeping track of most of the news until very recently. But we were just kind of doing our own thing, and we had sort of been lightly tossing the idea about starting the radio show again. And then Commander Congruent Crib, someone I met during one of the missions I was on, had showed some interest as well. So we decided with the 3 of us, we could probably get it off the ground again. And with that, I'd like to introduce Congruent Crib here to start with his first topic that he wanted to discuss.
Alright, so yeah. In recent news, we have had the Siruis Corporation and their involvement with the Thargoids and fighting them back. I do find this very interesting because we have had past experiences with the Siruis Corp and, well, it was kind of Thargoid related when they had the Siruis Atmospherics thing with the ammonia worlds and trying to get their research for those, where they then decided all of a sudden they did not have the proper equipment for it. And that kind of was a little controversial because it was in a major Thargoid time and we were in a major conflict with it. So I do think that, them kind of being a little more open with what they're kind of expressing and what they're doing is for the better. I hope that we can get some more details on what they're planning, what they're doing, and how this might affect our galaxy and who's gonna do what. I mean, we could have new technology. I mean, it would be great to see handheld weapons, but Thargoid edition, much like how we have Guardian equipment and all that. So I think it would be a really amazing thing to do if we could get into that and start, looking into the Thargoids more, because at the end of the day, we know a lot about humans. We do not know a lot about Thargoids, and the sooner that we can figure stuff about them, the sooner we can start doing stuff with them, for better or for worse.
It does seem strange that, I remember when, Thargoids started coming back kind of en masse again, and it was like a scramble for, almost all the powers, all the major powers kind of universally helped each other out. We had, initiatives dedicated to researching and trying to find ways to fight back against the Thargoids, and then making AX weapons and making a lot of progress. But then as soon as it got to the point where we could somewhat reliably take them out, all of a sudden it was like, okay, cool, we've done that. Let's get back to fighting with each other and ignore that problem, They're just hoping it'll go away. I don't see that there would be anything good to be gained by just stopping that progress just because the attacks have let up a little bit, you know? So I'm glad someone at least is trying to look into it, because that's exactly what happened last time. They just let up on thinking about Thargoids for so long, and then boom, there they are, and we're screwed, and it's going to happen again if we don't, you know, keep up with it.
And and that's the thing. Oh, go on.
I was going to say how it goes, you know, enemy of my enemy is my friend. We might not all like each other, you know, with our political backgrounds and who we support and all that, but we all kind of universally don't like being attacked by Thargoids because that sucks, and we don't like that. Simple enough. So I think it's something that actually is almost for the better. Usually war doesn't save lives, but in this case I think uniting as a bigger group, as humanity, we kind of get this new chance to look past our ideologies and focus on what the real issue is, and that is the preservation of life and humanity evolving to whatever they can.
And I'm completely on board with that. I mean, that's exactly the issue, though. Is like all of a sudden people have stopped caring about that because the thing that was a threat has now just become an inconvenience.
Exactly.
Right. And that's the issue because, you know, sure, we have weapons to get by right now, you know, weapons to keep them at bay for right now. But I
who
doubt
knows what they're going to come back with.
Yeah, exactly. I doubt the Thargoids are just going to sit around and, you know, allow us to sort of keep them at bay. If they want something from us, they're going to keep on engineering technology to circumvent what we're producing and, you know, try and make advances again.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, even before I was born, they had Thargoids attacking, you know, and they were getting to that point where they were very dangerous, and then we found ways to fight them back, and then, you know, they just kind of left for a while. And you and I reported on it quite a lot, Commander Felix, about the cover-ups that were involved, you know, even the whole Salome incident that was just in direct regards to the cover-ups by the Federation, which we never even really fully recovered those files. And it's just like, they just tried to pretend like it never happened, like Thargoids were some sort of rumor. And then when they came back, you know, a few years ago, all of a sudden they're way, way more powerful than they were back then. They have different kinds of ships. They have little swarms that attack us as we're in the middle of doing things. And it's like, you know, we were just wholly unprepared because instead of trying to prepare for it, we just pretended like it never happened.
Exactly, right. And if we keep ignoring the fact that they exist, they will come back. I mean, that's inevitable, and we might not get a second chance at successfully pushing them back. They may be more powerful than we expected, and the sooner that we kind of push them back and start focusing on them is going to be for the better. I mean, a good offense is a good defense. You got to be on the offense to defend your land. I mean, that's how it works. And if we keep ignoring them, we're going to probably regret this in the long run. And I don't want to be the person where they go, well, you should have done that. I want to be the person where they go, wow, we should have listened to them. And I would rather be on the proactive than the reactive.
Right.
Yeah, and branching out from that, too. I mean, like, there were groups who wanted to try to attempt to make peace with Thargoids, too, just to try to figure out what they even wanted. And same thing, if we don't even try, you know, if we sit there and pretend like it didn't happen and don't learn from our mistakes, then that's going to be just a no-go anyway, even if it's even possible, you know?
Right, yeah.
Like, so far, all they do is show up and attack, but, like, if that was ever going to be a possibility, we would never reach that possibility by just ignoring what's been happening. And, you know, it's there's lots of little things that I get. I get things there are important things that you can't look over just because Thargoid's around. It's not 100% of our you know, our focus should be on Thargoids, you know, but it some of it should be.
Yeah,
I know
definitely more than what it is right now.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And at least Siruis is doing something. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, speaking of things that also have some focus. Did you hear the Marlonists finally got independent?
Oh, wow. That's been a long time coming.
A very long time coming. I mean, technically, with the Marlonists, I mean, they came before the Empire. It was the Republic of Achenar that was eventually, became the Empire, but that Republic was founded under Marlonist principles. It'll be interesting to see because, like, a Marlonist principles originally was more of a democracy, almost similar to the Federation, but they just wanted to be separate from the Federation, But then, once the Duvals came into power and, the Empire itself formed, it turned into what it is today. So it'll be interesting to see how the Marlonist colonies, if they're going to rebuild that sort of democratic basis, of that republic that they had in the distant past, or if they're going to try to make almost like a mini imperial type society that eventually becomes another separate major power. Be interested to see how that progresses.
And I think it's actually very important that we take note that members of the Empire have officially accepted the fact that they are an independent, autonomous society. They're on their own, and they're not going to try and take them back. I think that's really bold on the Empire's part for essentially, growing up and being the bigger person, saying, yes, you can move on. Don't suggest it.
You say bold, but
well,
I don't know if that was necessarily the word for it.
Well, I would say it's relatively bold because it puts out a statement of, yes, you guys do have a choice in what you do, instead of, you must follow by our rules, obey by our commands, which has kind of been the more empirical way. It's a little more strict with things like that. But for them to allow them to do as they want and accept the fact that they are not a part of them anymore is kind of opening up a vulnerability in the Empire, and it makes them almost not look weak, but shows a weakness of, if you fight us, we won't fight back.
Well, I mean, you're saying it was brave of them to just say, yeah, you can go ahead and be your own place. But I mean, it's not like they really had that much of a choice. I think that is showing the weakness. Because if you look at it, at some of the more recent news, I mean, they've had assassination attempts. They've had, constant infighting for years. I mean, you've had, Ashling fighting for just to end imperial slavery, which has been going on forever. And then Zemina Torval is always trying to, just gain that little bit more power. And it's always back and forth and back and forth. And I think it was really just the Marlonists kind of taking advantage of that time frame. They're like, the Empire, especially with the recent assassination attempts on Lavigny Duval, Arista Lavigny Duval, she she's doing the negotiations. Now she's worried because she's fighting her own people. Now she's worried because she's going to be assassinated. And these people come along and they're like, hey, we want to stand alone. We want to have our own thing over here. And she tried,
there was a fight
to negotiate with them. And they said, no, we want to do this. And I don't think she really had a choice at this point. I don't think she could have enforced it without weakening other parts of the Empire to the point where they could easily be, she would have lost power somewhere else. And I think that was it was more of a strategic decision than it was her being gracious to them.
And yeah, I'm not saying that, she's being nice and, oh, you guys can do as you please, like all that. It's one of those, it's political, it's diplomatic, and it is strategic. Completely, they would much rather control them than not control them because, like you said, they just want more power because more power is more ability and all that. But I think it's kind of bold of them to accept the fact that they got a lot going on, and maybe focusing on that isn't the biggest issue for them. You gotta think, if they're going to let an entire group, an entire faction just disband and become their own thing, there must be some sort of internal conflicts that are really happening between the Empire, because I feel like the Empire would have all grouped together and helped, but here we have them not focusing exactly on that, and more or less just going, yeah, you guys can do your own thing, but yeah, I just find it interesting because I think there might be some internal conflicts that we're not aware of, that's not being made public, because, like I said, you would want to control as much as you can, and if you can't control them, well, there's a reason why, and just something interesting to think about.
Yeah. Well, there was that, I know they had like a recent meeting of Imperial heads. I think a lot of there's always been infighting with the Imperials. There's been infighting for a long time, and it's always been kind of like little things. Well, like I said, with Aisling wanting to end Imperial slavery, but then also just a modicum of respect because she's very young and the other people treat her like children. Where at the same time, you know, the other leaders have a lot more experience and they know a lot more of how to, you know, keep a navy built up. They know a lot more of how to expand to other systems and keep systems that they already own in line. And so it's always kind of been like a little bit of infighting, but in the end, they all have different strengths that they use for the greater good of the Empire. Mm-hmm. But more recently, I think the greater good of the Empire has been less of their concern, because then infighting has just been increasing. Exactly. And to kind of build off your point of it affecting the colonies, I mean, if you look at colonies, they usually require support from whatever power it is that owns them. In this case, the Empire would have needed to supply them with supplies, would have needed to provide them with protection, would have needed to, provide them with people, with settlers and stuff to fill out those colonies. And at this point, you know, if they're so focused on stuff internally, I mean, it's also possible that supplies have just kind of dried up, that they haven't been fulfilling their part of the deal, and in some way they know that. So that's why they're not really fighting it too much. Because it's not like the Marlinist colonies are just going to all of a sudden become a completely different and unique society. I mean, they're still have been part of the Empire for a long time, and they'll still culturally be Imperial, and they'll still historically have been Imperial, and there's still going to be a lot of influence from the Empire. But, so maybe they think it's not as much of an issue to let them go and start supplying things for themselves, you know, because then they don't have to focus on it.
Yeah, and it might be something with them, you know, physically not being able to support their end of the bargain, like you said. You know, if they can't help you, then why should you help them? And they're feeling probably the best bet is to just let them be, and if they suffer, they suffer. End of the day, that's why they don't want to be with them. So it would make total sense if they are more worried about losing power by supporting them than gaining power from helping them. So I think that is another very important thing to consider, but without inside knowledge, we really don't know. So that would be something definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, and speaking of supplies for the Marlinists as well, just going off of that, I do know that the Marlinist colonies have actually sent a contract in for the Pilots Federation to have pilots come bring them supplies. I think they're already trying to expand. They said something about constructing 6 new orbital stations.
There's a community goal going around that if they can get enough resources, they're going to put 6 new starports in orbit, which would be very helpful for the Marlinists, because if they're looking to
especially without that Empire support now.
Exactly, yeah. Without some major backing, you are just some small settlements that don't have major defenses like a orbiting starport does.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting, again, going with a supply issue, how we're talking about, you know, the Marlinist colonies going, oh, hey, we need more supplies. Let's go ahead and put a bid in with the Pilots Federation to have people come out. But the Pilots Federation, who has been integral in the galaxy for providing, freelance pilots to do a lot of jobs is, I've heard, phasing out a lot of pilots' licenses, requiring a good 20% of pilots going to have to either reapply or not going to be able to fly.
Yeah, that's a big thing that's kind of gone on, and I do think, while some people are a little upset that they may be missing their friends and all that are no longer pilots, I do think it might be a little bit for the better, because now we can cater to ourselves and not extra people. I mean, we don't want to cater to too many people. The Pilots Federation is, trying to help out all these people, and they're being stretched too thin. And now that they do not have to spend resources assisting those other groups and all those people, and while it was a small chunk, small as in 20%, wasn't a majority or anything, but I do think it is potentially for the better, and they might be able to start putting more resources into things that we need to get done, some new events and stuff, new stuff to do, Thargoid stuff, like we mentioned earlier, digging up some old tomb sites of the Guardians. I think that, now that they don't have to help and cover so much ground, they might be able to put a little more effort into the advancement of our society.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that not much has changed since we last did a talk show in relation, or, you're talking about the Guardians and whatnot, like, I mean, we've discovered more. That is definitely true, but it's not much more than what we discovered back then. So
yeah, because back then we were finding tons and tons and tons of stuff, and then all of a sudden it just kind of stopped.
Right.
And it was just silent, and it kind of was like we just went, good enough. And like we were mentioning earlier, if we stop getting into these things, we're going to run into some big issues, because Thargoids will come back, and they will not be friendly, and they will come and fight us, and we need to be prepared.
But it's also going back to the Pilots Federation a little bit, I've always been, a little suspicious of the Pilots Federation. They have a lot of power, kind of seem to have come out of nowhere, and it seems like everyone's just like, oh yeah, if you don't have a Pilots Federation license, you can't do work unless you are working for, a power or a company. You're like in the Navy or something. But like a Pilots Federation license is at this point in time in the galaxy the only way to really be an independent pilot or a free pilot or be able to operate your own vessels, And I'm thinking that honestly, maybe just their expansion, they've recently started doing working with like Apex for like ground assault contracts and doing more military engagements as well. Getting involved in just basic, like even it's crazy the amount of stuff that they get involved in. It's like, oh yeah, you want to trade something from one system to another, Pilots Federation can help you. Oh, your settlement is out of power, here's one of our Pilots Federation pilots to just do basic maintenance. It just seems kind of weird that it's so spread out.
And they got their hands in a lot of pots.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and when I renewed my Pilots Federation just recently, I had to do it through them, and I found that very odd. I mean, I don't know why I couldn't just take my things and move along, but I had to go through them. I had to send messages and all this, and while they did make it relatively easy, it's one of those, why did I have to be there in the first place? Why were you there?
Right. It seems like maybe that's why they're, because another thing recently that has been a bit of a like for a long time, and Felix, you'll remember we used to talk about this a while ago, where it was just like we didn't have permission to like even leave our ships and walk around on stations or settlements, because we were Pilots Federation, so we were independent. We couldn't just get out and go do things.
Well, because we had other people that unloaded the ships for us, other people.
Right, and that was what we did. We just landed. Yeah. They did that. We couldn't even get out. We couldn't even go to the bar if we wanted to, because, well, that's for citizens, Empire Station. Citizens of the Empire can go to this bar, whatever. And then recently, well, I guess not so recently, it was always a thing like, okay, cool, we want to maybe start working almost exclusively out of a single system or out of a few single systems, and it was a pain in the ass to get all of your fleet over there. And then, they started saying, oh, well, you can have people fly your stuff over there for you. And then they even let Federation pilots start getting their own fleet carriers, these massive ships that are just now all over the place. Honestly, I've seen so many of them. It's insane. Yeah. But then even then, like, you would have a fleet carrier, but like, the crew it was almost like you were renting it, because whatever crew would just operate it, you would just park and it would just do, what you told it to do. But, you couldn't even then get out and go walk around it. And now, Pilots Federation licenses have expanded to include that if you're on one of these fleet carriers, independent fleet carriers, you can actually go inside and you can enjoy the facilities inside as well. And I'm wondering if maybe it's just like that 20% of pilots that they're slowly phasing out, they don't have the same privileges, I guess, as our licenses come with.
Capabilities, I guess you could say.
They're still not allowed to go out of their ships into somebody else's independent fleet carrier. They're still not allowed to walk around down there. And they've, been able to do some of that other stuff, but it's like, maybe the Pilots Federation is just trying to, rather than get everybody to that point, start focusing on the ones who already have those permissions, who already have those privileges, and keep with them and just kind of trim the fat, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of pretty much the complete opposite, instead of narrowing things down, we're talking about things getting a lot wider and the scope's getting a lot larger. Our last story is talking about the Bucky Ball, which has a new event out. It's actually a sort of compilation of the best 8 Bucky Ball races over the past few years or so. It is called the Magic 8 Ball. Look at that, it's numbers and
8
whatnot.
races, 8 ball. About that.
So, so we missed a couple of the beginning racers that happened earlier in the year. Right now, as time of the recording, the Wiccan Beware race is active, but the following race will be the On the Rocks race, which was from 3304. And I always think it's fun to bring up Bucky Ball, because as a 2-time Bucky Ball champ, well, not champ, but participant and veteran myself, with I just want to point out, the fastest Eagle Mark II in my division.
I remember you talking
both
about
times,
that.
Yeah, both times. That was Bucky Ball 9 and Bucky Ball 10, the Big X.
How many Eagle Mark IIs were there, by the way? Just
there was one.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I'd be damned if it wasn't the fastest one.
Yeah, well, yes. But, I mean, I also beat some other people in some other ships.
No, and to be fair, like, I'm teasing a little bit, but it is, like, a tough race. It does take quite a lot of time, a lot of effort. And it is a really cool thing to just do, to participate in.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the bowling series. Do you remember that?
I actually did some bowling.
Yeah, I tried, but I could never get it right.
Ooh, it really makes your stomach churn a little bit, but it is a hell of a thrill to be just zipping, 10 meters over the surface of a planet at like 800 meters per second. It is insane. We'll have to go try that sometime,
Definitely.
See if we can get you properly bowling.
It's all fun and games until you sneeze and accidentally nosedive right into the...
yeah.
That's why you practice. That's why you practice with your ship-launched fighters before you take your Type 9 down there.
Well, I don't know how you're going to practice not sneezing, but that'd be kind of hard.
Oh, that's cool. They're doing a lot of the old races. The Seven Sisters Speedway, I recognize that one. I remember we talked about that one for a bit. It's back in 3305. Wow.
Yeah.
It looks like the Mischief Mile. That looks like the oldest one they have on their list.
Yeah, and
3301.
There's definitely some good races in the pool. Definitely check them out if you're interested. But I mean, I always love doing them. I think they're a lot of fun. And even though, yeah, like we're saying, joking a little bit, but you know, the Eagle's not the best ship for it. But I mean, you can still have fun no matter what you bring to the race. I think the slogan for Buckyball 10 was something along the lines of like, it's not what you got, it's how you use it. You know, just sort of like that. And you know, and that was the whole thing. It's embracing just doing. You know, we do a lot of serious work, talk about like Thargoids, the Guardians, you know, even the Empire in our ships. And, you know, it's fun to just take a load off and do something sort of like a competition against other commanders and see where you can place, you know?
And it's one of those, it's a community thing. It's definitely good that we kind of put our differences behind us and go, hey, let's just have some time to ourselves and let's just make sure we're all right. And that's why I think it's very important that we get as many people participating in that, because a game is no fun with only one player. If we get multiple players, it's a lot more fun. So if you have this huge swarm of people, you get a lot of variety, and I think it's really important that we get people motivated to play around and relax, because these are, you know, serious things that we go through, but you need to take a break sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see the time difference on some of these older ones comparatively to, like, I mean, if you look at it, even especially that one from 3301, right? Like,
yeah,
the difference in FSD technology over the past 8 years has been insane. I mean, the amount of distance you can get an Anaconda to jump, even just being able to harness you know, Wolf Riot stars and just being able to use like synthesized materials to boost your FSDs, and some people, you know, might have some aftermarket components installed by certain engineers, you know, and it's going to be really interesting to see the difference in what you could do back in 3301 and what you could do now. You know?
Exactly.
Right.
Like I said, variety. You have more people, you're going to have a way bigger variety, and you get to really see who's creative and who's not creative, I guess you could say. You're going to see some really weird things, and I know you said the Eagle's probably not the best ship for whatever you're doing, and it might not be the best ship, but it's how you use it, and that is how things should be. It shouldn't be if you do this, this, and this, you'll be set. Everything will be easy. It should be, you gotta figure it out yourself. You gotta learn how to use these tools, because if you don't do that, it just makes everything boring, and it makes everything mundane.
And it kind of makes it makes technology fall into a rut. If everyone finds a way that works and everyone does that way, they won't experience with new ones. And maybe, you know, they won't find out, oh, there's another way to do it that's even better than this way. You know, it's like, you got to have competition where people are willing to do crazy stuff, you know?
Yeah, like I wonder if you took your Eagle, you know, and you got it engineered pretty heavily, and you hit the right stars, I wonder if you could beat the time that the Anaconda set, you know, 9 years ago.
Yeah, it would be an interesting challenge. I might have to do that. I haven't actually flown my Eagle probably since Bucky Ball 10, so it's it's been collecting some dust. I'm gonna have to fly it over and get it engineered to one of these days.
We'll have to see how that goes. And you know, it sounds like we have some good plans coming up. Some Buckyball. We're definitely going to go bowling. I am really eager to watch your ships splat into the surface of the planet several times.
Speaking of, we got to go back to Achenar 3.
We definitely have to go back to Achenar.
Yeah.
Achenar would be a great place to go bowling, because you need some high G to do it.
I've never been there. What's the G rating?
6.7.
Oh. Yeah, it's a lot.
Though I did find a planet recently. It's gorgeous. It's purple. It almost hits 9 Gs.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
I know.
That would be a good spot, too.
I saw a thing someone posted, and it was, I think it was 24 Gs, and, like, I don't why. I don't know how that's possible.
I will give you all the credits I have if you take your Corvette over there.
I'll do it.
Don't
I'll
die.
do it.
Oh, God, don't bring up the Corvette, because Federation took that away from me. Sucks.
Or even a Type 10.
Oh,
I'd love to see one of those things try to
yeah.
float over one of those
I
IG
remember
planets.
they were coming in at like a 5-degree slope, because if you do any more than that, you're just going to slam into the ground.
Sink. I remember when we were doing it last time, I only had a clipper. And I still had to boost to leave the gravity well.
Yeah.
We couldn't just fly straight up. We had to boost like twice before we could jump.
Yeah, and I remember
So
I was just ascending with my bottom thrusters. I wasn't even angling my ship up.
You were like,
and,
I'm not even going to try.
No, because I knew it wasn't going to work. And even when I was out of mass lock, I angled my ship up and I fell back into mass lock a little bit, and I had to boost my way back out of it. So
It's definitely fun planets to go on.
Yeah,
it's definitely been good to do the radio show again too. This is something I definitely missed. There was definitely times when I was kind of like, I know why we stopped doing it, but it's still it's good to start up again.
Yeah, I mean, you can only do so much in retirement, right? Then you start getting bored.
Just sit on planet side drinking mimosas.
Yeah.
Watching the rings of the planet go around. That actually sounds nice. I'm like,
you gonna go head out right now?
Yeah. Like I said, I found that station, and it is a beautiful sight. Just saying.
Oh yeah, you were mentioning that. Yeah.
But I think for now, that's pretty much everything we have today. Unless you guys have anything you want to add?
No, I think that covers everything, at least on my end.
Well, thank you very much, Congruent, for joining us. It's nice to have another voice.
Thank you for allowing me to come on and join the team. I have, ever since I switched over, redid my license, as of recently, I really haven't had anyone to really fly around with, and it's been kind of lonely. So being able to find a new clique and new group that is welcoming is really heartwarming, and actually really makes things a lot easier for me, just overall. So I thank you guys immensely on that.
Oh, I mean, it's a lot of fun to fly with you. I mean,
yeah.
I definitely need to start piloting more often. It's been a while since I regularly got out there and did missions. I'm surprised that they even updated my Pilots Federation license, just because I hadn't been really using it in so long.
Yeah, I was gonna say, also, I don't know if flying with me is too much fun. I mean, you really gotta get a 4-point harness and get a helmet on, because
I mean,
I'm a little reckless.
I'm not. I think it was a lot of fun going through that asteroid field and just being a little bit too close to that asteroid, and I think I was at. I mean, I didn't have a shield, so
yeah,
I was okay. I survived.
Like I said, when we went mining, I have shields for a reason.
I don't, because I'm a good pilot.
I am just observing the place around me, and out of no words,
I just look.
Big rock.
Yeah.
Look to the right, rock. Don't go right. Look to the left. No rock. Go left.
Well, I can't look behind me.
Yeah, you can. You just turn around.
There's a big wall behind me. How am I supposed to do that?
No. But either way, I think that's the end of our episode today. Thank you, everyone who listened in, and we'll see you next time. This is Commander Stephanie Atronach signing off.
Commander Felix Jefferson signing off. Fly safe, Commander.
And Commander Congruent Crib signing off. And watch out for those asteroids.